Hello and welcome to Preconnotation Points Video Snark. I'm continuing my read-through of The Plan by Qwen Salsbury. Please make sure that you've seen the other videos in my Snark series about the book before you jump into this video. Chapter 10, Day of Employment 368. The chapter opens on Emma having what's apparently a reoccurring nightmare. About what, you ask? Who knows? This isn't given any more attention and the book quickly sweeps this under the rug. Why was it brought up then? Who knows? Emma goes into work at 7:30. She's exhausted from her nightmares earlier and she prays that today will be the day that Alaric decides to take the day off, with no such luck. He breezes in and leaves his office door open as an invitation that Emma is to follow him in. The wall does not have piercing eyes or an unwholly defined jawline or 6 creases, 4 long and 2 short, that form in its bottom lip when it gets dry. Dear Lord, that is an oddly specific description. Alaric keeps her waiting in his office for a long moment as he does something. He then snaps out that he's doing the final prep for his trip and finishing a few things around the office. Emma is less than thrilled with his less than charming personality. To the point where, I get it, the guy is hot, but no amount of looking like the love child of Jason Momoa and Chris Evans could possibly counteract that personality. Yikes, girl. Go to therapy. Despite the odds being stacked against her, Emma somehow or another manages to last another full day. The book calls this Emma's first day of her working as Alaric's PA, but she did spend most of the day before working for him, so somebody's wires got a little crossed with that. But Emma also implies that the fact that Alaric wasn't even in the building much that day contributed heavily to her having lasted 2 whole days. Clara, treading softly. So how goes the dream job? Unfortunately, it's more like Clara's treading softly in steel-toe work boots, shattering eggshells everywhere. This book manages to contradict itself in 3 lines. What is happening? Clara somehow simultaneously is a good but also terrible friend. She asks how Emma's day went, but she doesn't seem to understand why Emma is so upset over the entire thing. She understands that Alaric is an asshole, but she also knows that Emma is in love with the guy, for still unknown reasons. Emma complains that she feels like a leper at work and that everybody has been ignoring her. And then, all in any hope that I had that the plot would actually start to, progress at this point, goes flying out the window at the close of this chapter. So much for that, then. Chapter 11, Day of Employment 369. Emma is baffled when she goes into work the next morning at 7:10 a.m. and finds Alaric already there. She thinks that there must be a hidden pod chamber somewhere in his office where he recharges overnight. Later, he leaves Emma a note to do what I'm chalking up to as pointless busy work that should probably be better suited for an unpaid intern. He refuses to talk to her when she's like, should I do it like this? And instead starts to make calls. So she decides to go to the copy room and just do the task the way that she thought would be faster, only to find that there's no paper in there and a nasty note from Alaric warning her not to make the copies over again. This guy is a serious piece of work and a walking HR nightmare. Up to my gizzard in sordid stacks of corporate propaganda, reams and reams of it. The Lorax would be impressed with our tree carnage. I had to read this, and so do you. And kindly do not bring Dr. Seuss into this. Emma quickly finds out why it is that Alaric had told her not to reprint the files, because there's a lot of them. Which only makes me wonder why it is that he left her the note but couldn't be bothered to tell her that it was the entire Game of Thrones novels in amount of paper. Madeline comes in with coffee and some homemade banana bread. Emma gets kind of grumpy at the thought of spilling coffee and all of that paperwork. However, she insists that the work isn't that bad. However, this leads both of them to talking and thinking about the wrath of Alaric should Emma choose to take a break, when even Emma admits that she's required by law to take one. And honestly, why hasn't anybody filed a lawsuit about things like this before? Granted, we haven't actually seen Alaric being overly nasty towards literally anybody. We're only just counting on the word of Emma that the man fires people for things like tapping their nails against the desk. But if that's the honest truth, then how in the world is Alaric more important to the company than what must be a slurry of HR complaints and lawsuits? I feel like my life is on hold, in limbo. Do this, accomplish that, work, school, rent. Clara says I don't leave time for love. I won't argue, but it's not accurate. I don't exhaust time on relationships or people who aren't worth what little time I have. She says this, but yet the entire premise of this book is based around Emma literally trying to change literally every aspect of herself in order to end up with Alaric. But at the same time, she herself admitted that if Alaric treated her awfully, she'd probably get over her crush on him. And yet, here we are. Nothing quite like throwing a brick into the window that is this book's logic. She goes on to say that she wants to have a love like her grandparents, where her grandfather looked at her grandmother when they were in school together and instantly knew that she was the one. Emma is then startled by Alaric showing up in the basement. He complains that she's been down there for a long time. This kind of goes against what Emma had previously thought, that Alaric wanted nothing to do with her, but needing to hire a new PA right before his trip would have been annoying, so he sent her down to the basement to find files that didn't actually exist. And I seriously thought that this was going to lead into another one of Emma's steamy daydreams about him, but then she just kind of stares at him for a while and the chapter comes to a rather unsatisfying end. I've come to the conclusion that the plot found in the other chapter must have been a fluke. Nothing else has happened since then. And now that I'm 11 chapters and some 60 pages into the book, I'm not quite sure that there's going to be a whole lot of plot movement.